So great. And that was a guided meditation. And I focused on consciousness because I'm sure you didn't have the time to read that lengthy, long document I shared with you. And just so you know, this could be an ongoing discussion. We don't have to really go through that document today at all. In the next few minutes, I will just take an entry into the discussion on consciousness. This is because a professor who is interested in artificial intelligence and machine learning began, texting me and asking questions about what the Buddha says about consciousness. And this is not what he wanted. He didn't want a long document, but he needed something very straightforward, which I started looking online, and I hardly found anything that would tell us straightforward things about consciousness. So the Pali word for consciousness is vijnana. Vijnana is kind of an abused word in Sri Lanka. Sometimes when somebody trips over something, we use that word for forgetfulness or not being mindful, or when somebody makes a bad decision, we say, this man doesn't have any vijnana, as a way of kind of reminding him to be more conscious, mindful, or a little bit thoughtful about what they are thinking. We say, Melo Vijnana, this man doesn't have any earthly consciousness, like any consciousness on this earth. This, in other words, is a way of saying you need to think more, you need to be careful about what you are doing. So sometimes a mother would advise their her son, about be a little more conscious about your surrounding. So I think that is also somewhat common to the culture here in this country. And in Buddhism, we have come across vijnana quite a bit. We have discussed about consciousness in 5 aggregates. We have discussed it in relationship with the 12 links of dependent origination. So everything is that way interdependent. Like recently, I think His Holiness Dalai Lama said something, he's not the king for just Tibet. He likes to think that way about the entire world, because the world is connected. And there is this universal consciousness, Vishwa Vijnana. So Harold says, American parents often say, pay attention or watch yourself to their children. So, yeah, I have heard that. Watch yourself, watch your step. Pay attention. These are ways to remind people to be a little bit alert. Be mindful, don't get into trouble, don't fall. So it's like that. So everything is connected. That's what I said earlier about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I think the world needs to go in that direction to, to understand that no country can depend on its own. The United States or Sri Lanka or Australia, they all need everybody's support. So there is that consciousness, connectedness. And in today's meditation, I mentioned about consciousness. I also mentioned about feelings, which can be pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. So these three are the feelings. And then I also mentioned about perception. So we perceive things and immediately there is a feeling. If you are mindful enough to notice that, you can catch the feeling. Oftentimes it could be a feeling that you otherwise ignore, a feeling of feeling neutral about many things. And in today's meditation, I don't know how successful you were in following the steps I was giving, and at some point I was quiet. And if you were able to notice your awareness, and you know things are happening, like the sounds in your background, but only when you pay attention to these things, you know that it exists. This is why people sometimes say, you are just a thought in your mind. Only when you think about you, you exist. And your mother, only when you think about her, she exists in your world. And other times, she's there, but you don't think about her. You don't think about anybody all the time. If you do, there is a problem. So now, these three things, perception, feeling, and consciousness, go together. In the sutras, these things go together. So what I mean by that is a single unit like consciousness cannot exist without perception and feeling, or feeling cannot exist without perception and consciousness, or perception cannot exist without consciousness or feeling. So the three are connected. Whether it's consciousness, you can't have consciousness without perception and feeling. So what is perception, what is feeling, and what is consciousness? And these same questions have been asked in the sutras. Perception is generally like perceiving something like blue, yellow, red. So you see something to perceive. But because we have labeled things, we see immediately a form and we think that is a human form. And we see an animal form and we think of an animal, the type of animal associated with it. Even when your eyes are closed, you can perceive things of animals, of basically anything. So that is about perception. Feelings, generally, if you notice a pet animal that you love to see, so happiness is the feeling. If it is something to do with a painful thing, it's unhappiness, little bit of aversion, little anger, disliking associated with it. And if it is something neutral, you don't get excited about it, you don't care about it. So there is a neutral aspect to it, neutral feeling. So this is how you learn Buddhism. Basically, you learn about perception, sanya. Its perception is sanya. Feelings is vedana. So these are plural terms. And then consciousness. Again, a thing that is divided into 6 classes. And it's a plural. So you have these 6 classes: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and the mind consciousness. Chakku viññāna, sota viññāna, jivha viññāna, kaya viññāna, and mano viññāna. Ghana viññāna, also the consciousness with the nose. So all these 6 somehow find a way, one after the other, to be conscious on something. Even in sleep, there is a connection. Mind consciousness is active, alert. So it's always, these things are busy, feeding, finding ways to keep active. So when you think about dementia, Alzheimer, there is an arrangement that we don't understand, and that is connected with the physical brain. But without being in the body, there are ways that people have been conscious. Sometimes they do surgeries in your body and you are observing it from outside the body. So this is the magical thing about this mind, consciousness, chitta relationship. And in that article I shared, this author has highlighted 3 terms: chitta, which is one popular term; mano, another popular term; and viññāna. These 3 discussed in that article. So in one of the instances, I remember, Chuddho apeta viññāno, abandoned and consciousness gone. I'm not completely sure about the translation of Chuddho, but apeta viññāno is consciousness abandoned. So this is talking about the body. And then right after that it says nirattangva kalingaram. It's like a useless piece of wood that you can't use it even for firewood. It's useless. So that is the body, a corpse that is dead. There's no consciousness. You can't revive it. So viññāna gone. And if you notice in your previous understandings, consciousness cannot arise without other things. You have to have a physical eye for eye consciousness to arise. When you see something, you hear something, you smell something, all these spheres, bases, need to be present for each consciousness to arise. So they are dependent. So you don't begin with dependent on the I consciousness arises. It has other things that are discussed. You have to have I and a form. So you have to see a form and then take notice of it. Immediately, I consciousness arises. And meeting of these three is called contact. The Pali term of contact is phassa. And immediately there is Vedana, feelings. So now you see the dependent nature of this experience. If it is a pleasant feeling, you like it. Unpleasant feeling, you don't like it. That means you have slight cravings. And if it is neither painful nor pleasant, you are neutral about it. So now you see feelings and tanha, craving, associated with this experience. So this is a round that is manifesting constantly with ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. These activities are happening. So I'm going to stop it there because it's 8:35 already. And bring your questions next time, and perhaps we can get into the article and begin talking about it. I shared two things with you. One is that article, ignore the Pali parts if you are not familiar with it. And also there is a discussion forum. The link to that has been shared. So it looks like Wednesday is less popular because we have not been doing these in a while. Let's see. We will try to get back doing that regularly. So thank you for the kind words, Chandratilaka Nona. She says it's very well explained. Ape Hamdurone. Yes, so I like to hear that. In places that we don't understand, we need to discuss Dhamma. Dhamma Sakaccha is an auspicious thing, the Buddha said. Kalena Dhamma Sakaccha, timely discussions of Dhamma. Etam Mangalam Uttamam, this is an auspicious thing. It's a thing that brings us happiness. So that's what we do. Yes, Dawn, she says thank you, and this is very interesting. All right. So I love to hear that, and thank you very, very much. We will continue on Monday.
Thank you, Amdulne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buddha Saranai.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you. May good things happen to you, and we will connect on next, whenever we connect again.
Thank you, Andrew.